All right, diving into this world of questions, you shared some really interesting material with us, specifically that podcast episode.
Right.
Professional question skills for business.
Yeah.
I think we're going to uncover some valuable insights for you here.
I think so, too. It's surprising how often we overlook the importance of asking the right questions, especially in a professional setting.
Absolutely. And this episode dives right into that.
Yeah.
Highlighting how even subtle aspects of our questioning, like our tone of voice, can have a huge impact.
It's true.
They actually call this the melody of questions, which I find pretty intriguing.
It is. It's a great analogy.
Right.
The episode points out that a rising tone at the end of a question can make you sound less confident, while a falling tone projects more authority.
Yeah.
It's almost like a subtle way of directing the conversation.
It's fascinating how a simple shift in inflection can completely change how a question is perceived.
Yeah.
Almost like adding a subtle layer of meaning.
And what I found really interesting is how different cultures have distinct patterns in their question melodies.
Right.
The American tendency towards a more direct falling tone contrasts sharply with the Australian preference for rising tones.
That's true.
And then you have the diplomatic dip in Singapore, where the voice rises slightly in the middle of the question before falling gently at the end.
Yeah.
It's almost like a carefully orchestrated dance between seeking input and subtly guiding the conversation.
Yeah, it's like they're adding a layer of politeness and indirectness, which is crucial in a culture that values harmony and respect.
And the key takeaway, the most successful global leaders are masters of adapting their question melody to their audience. And objective. They know when to be direct and when to be more subtle.
Exactly.
And the episode shares that great anecdote about a tech executive who learned this the hard way. She was struggling to be taken seriously by her team
until she realized her question melody was undermining her authority. Once she made that subtle adjustment, her team meetings were completely transformed. That story really resonated with me. It shows that even small changes in our communication style can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears and talk about what happens when we need clarification. This episode reveals a rather startling statistic. 70% of misunderstandings in business stem from a fear of asking for clarification.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge number. It makes you wonder how many deals have fallen through, how many projects have been delayed, all because people were afraid to ask a simple clarifying question.
Exactly.
The good news is that the episode provides a fantastic framework for overcoming this fear and mastering the art of clarification. They highlight the importance of moving beyond simple, I don't understand statements. And framing your requests for clarification more strategically.
They use that example of the Fortune 500 executive who always seemed to have the clearest understanding in every meeting. Her secret was an elegant clarification technique where she'd phrase her requests in a way that positioned her as actively seeking understanding, not just pointing out a gap in knowledge. Instead of saying, I don't get it. She might say something like, to make sure I'm fully aligned with your vision. Could you walk me through that again? It's a subtle shift in language. But it makes a big difference in how she's perceived.
It's a great reminder that the way we frame our questions can significantly impact how they're received. And it's not just about the words we use. It's about the entire package, especially in today's world of virtual meetings.
Absolutely. The episode provides a digital clarification toolkit for navigating online interactions, emphasizing strategic use of the chat function, mastering unmute timing, and knowing when to turn your camera on for emphasis. It's about adapting our clarification strategies to the digital landscape.
And one technique I found particularly insightful was the reflect then request method used by top negotiators. They don't jump straight into asking for clarification. They take a moment to reflect on what they've heard, summarize their understanding, and then ask their clarifying question.
It's a brilliant strategy. It shows that you're not just passively listening, you're actively processing the information. It also gives the speaker a chance to correct any misinterpretations before you move on.
Yeah.
It creates a much more collaborative and respectful dynamic.
It makes you sound thoughtful and engaged, which can be especially important in high-stakes negotiations or complex discussions.
Yeah.
And speaking of navigating complexity, let's move on to the different types of questions we can use to unlock insights and guide conversations.
Yeah.
The episode calls this the question arsenal. And it's all about having the right question for the right situation.
Think of it like a chef with a variety of knives.
Yeah.
Each designed for a specific purpose. You wouldn't use a paring knife to carve a roast, would you?
Right.
The same principle applies to questions.
Yeah.
Different types of questions serve different purposes.
And the episode highlights a common mistake.
Right.
Many of us make relying on a limited set of question types.
Yeah.
Top performers, on the other hand, have a diverse arsenal of questions at their disposal.
Yeah.
They understand the nuances of open-ended questions, closed questions, leading questions, and more.
Right. They give that great example of the CEO who was trying to understand why a product launch had failed. His initial approach was to ask a series of closed yes-no questions, which yielded very little useful information.
Right.
But then he shifted gears and asked an open-ended question. Walk me through how the team experienced the launch timeline.
Okay.
This simple change unlocked a flood of insights that would have remained hidden with those closed questions.
It's a powerful reminder that the way we structure our questions can have a profound impact on the quality of information we receive.
Right.
Now, within this arsenal of questions, there's a concept they introduce called the 7 dimensions of strategic questioning. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's unpack those dimensions.
Okay.
Which ones do you think are most relevant for discussion today?
Well, given your interest in effective communication and leadership,
Right.
I think 2 dimensions stand out.
Sure.
Framing and sequencing. Framing is all about how you structure the question
Right.
to elicit a specific type of response.
Yeah.
Like that CEO example we just discussed.
And sequencing is about the strategic order of your questions, right? How you create a flow that guides the conversation towards a desired outcome.
They introduce a technique called the question cascade, which is especially effective in negotiations and persuasive conversations.
So tell me more about this question cascade.
Okay.
How does it work in practice?
It's all about starting with a broad, open-ended question, and then progressively narrowing the focus with each subsequent question.
Yeah.
They provide a great example.
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts on the current market?
Okay.
Followed by, which specific sectors are you most concerned about? And finally, how would those concerns impact our proposed partnership?
It's like you're creating a funnel.
Exactly.
Guiding the conversation towards your objective without being overly direct or pushy.
Exactly. And the episode highlights how this technique can be used to subtly guide someone towards your perspective. Almost like leading them through a series of insights that ultimately bring them closer to your point of view.
That's a powerful concept. It's not about manipulation.
Right.
It's about using questions strategically to create a shared understanding and guide the conversation towards a mutually beneficial outcome.
Now, speaking of strategic sequencing, they also emphasize the importance of question chains, which are pre-planned sets of questions designed to extract specific information or guide a conversation along a specific path.
So it's like having a roadmap for the conversation.
Exactly.
A series of carefully crafted questions that will lead you to your destination.
It's a great way to put it.
I can see how that would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Especially in situations where you need to gather specific information quickly and efficiently.
The episode shares a story about a sales director who increased her team's closing rate by 40%.
Wow.
Simply by teaching them how to use question chains effectively.
That's an impressive result.
It is.
It really highlights how mastering this skill can translate into tangible business outcomes. But let's not forget about those high-pressure situations where effective questioning becomes even more critical, like during a crisis.
Right. The episode delves into the realm of rapid-fire precision questions, which are essential for navigating crises and emergencies.
Okay.
It's not about bombarding people with questions.
Right.
It's about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
The ones that cut through the chaos and get to the heart of the matter.
So instead of asking a vague question like what's happening in a panic, you'd ask something more specific.
Exactly.
Like which systems are down, or what's the immediate impact on our customers?
Exactly. They give the example of a server crash.
Right.
In that situation, you don't have time for open-ended explorations. You need precise, targeted questions that will give you the information you need to make critical decisions quickly.
It's about prioritizing.
Right.
Focusing on the most essential information needed to take immediate action. And the episode also provides some really interesting techniques for navigating those high-stakes business negotiations.
They introduce this idea of reversible questions.
Okay.
Which are questions crafted in a way that benefits you regardless of the answer.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of a reversible question?
Imagine you're negotiating a contract. And you want to gauge the other party's flexibility on price without directly asking about their budget.
Right.
Instead of saying, is our price point within your budget?
Right.
Which could lead to a flat no.
Yeah.
You might ask, how do you typically structure investments to maximize value for your organization?
That's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah.
It opens up a conversation about their financial approach and priorities without putting them on the defensive.
Right.
And no matter what they say, you gain valuable insights that can help you move the negotiation forward.
It's a win-win scenario. Now, before we delve into the fascinating world of cultural nuances and questioning, the episode shares one final point about negotiation that I found incredibly insightful.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay.
What is it?
They reveal that top negotiators dedicate a significant portion of their time, around 60%, to asking what they call foundation questions.
Foundation questions.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that term.
Right.
What are they and why are they so important in negotiations?
Foundation questions are questions designed to go beyond the surface level and uncover the other party's deeper motivations, fears, and aspirations. They're not about the specific terms of the deal.
Right.
They're about understanding the human being behind the negotiation.
It's about building rapport.
Exactly.
Establishing trust.
Yeah.
And creating a connection that goes beyond the transactional aspects of the negotiation. It's fascinating how these seemingly soft skills can actually be so crucial for achieving hard results.
Absolutely. And the episode provides some excellent examples of foundation questions.
Okay.
Such as, what are your biggest concerns going into this partnership? Or what would make this a truly successful collaboration for you?
These are questions that invite vulnerability, encourage open sharing, and create a foundation for a more collaborative and mutual beneficial negotiation.
And speaking of understanding different perspectives, let's shift gears now.
Okay.
And explore the fascinating interplay between culture and questioning.
All right.
The episode calls this the cultural symphony. And it's all about how the same question asked with the same words and tone could be perceived very differently across cultures.
That's such an important point.
It is.
It's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that everyone communicates in the same way.
Right.
But cultural nuances play a huge role in how our questions are interpreted and received.
The episode highlights this with a simple example.
Okay.
The question, why haven't we met our quarterly targets? This might be a perfectly acceptable question in a Western business setting.
Right.
But in many Asian cultures, it could be perceived as confrontational and disrespectful.
It's a stark reminder that what might be considered direct and assertive in one culture could be seen as aggressive and insensitive in another.
That's right.
So how do we navigate these cultural complexities when it comes to asking questions?
The episode emphasizes the importance of adapting our questioning style to the specific cultural context. They share a story about an American executive in Singapore who was struggling to get meaningful responses from her team.
Yeah.
She was asking clear, concise questions, but they weren't landing the way she intended.
I'm guessing she was coming across as too direct.
Exactly.
Perhaps even a bit insensitive given the cultural norms in Singapore.
And the key takeaway from her experience is that in cultures that value indirectness and harmony, it's crucial to preface our questions with context, relationship-building elements, and a genuine sense of curiosity. It's about creating a safe space for open dialogue, rather than imposing our Western communication style.
It's about being mindful of the cultural nuances. And adapting our approach accordingly.
Right, and they also introduced this fascinating concept of Invisible question markers.
Invisible question markers.
Yeah. In some cultures, questions aren't always explicitly stated with a question mark at the end. Yeah. They're implied through context, tone of voice,
right,
or even silence. The episode gives an example from Japanese business culture.
Okay.
Where a statement like, "I wonder about the delivery timeline,"
right,
is actually a culturally appropriate way of posing a question.
Yeah.
Without being overly direct.
It's like they're embedding the question within a statement.
Exactly.
Using a more subtle and indirect approach.
And the episode shares a cautionary tale about a British CEO in Tokyo.
Okay.
Who nearly lost a major deal because he didn't understand these cultural subtleties.
Wow.
He made a classic mistake of asking direct, pointed questions too early in the negotiation before the necessary relationship-building phase had been established.
Yeah.
This made the Japanese investors feel uncomfortable and put the entire deal at risk.
It's a powerful reminder that cultural awareness is not just a nice-to-have.
Right.
It's a critical success factor in global business.
And to help us navigate these complexities, the episode introduces the Cultural Question Matrix.
Okay.
A framework for analyzing cultural differences in communication. This matrix examines 4 key dimensions.
Okay.
Directness versus indirectness.
Right.
Individual versus group focus. Status consciousness and time orientation.
Okay.
Understanding these dimensions can help you tailor your questioning style to different cultures and avoid those potentially deal-breaking misunderstandings.
It's like having a cultural decoder ring, a tool that helps you decipher the subtle cues and unspoken rules of communication in different parts of the world.
Exactly. And they also provide some really practical techniques for bridging cultural divides, like the bridge question method.
Bridge question method, okay.
Instead of jumping straight into your business question, you start by building a bridge of shared understanding.
Right.
This might involve acknowledging a shared value, commenting on something you've observed about their culture, or simply expressing a genuine interest in learning more about their perspective.
It's about creating a connection before you launch into the more transactional aspects of the conversation.
And once that connection is established, your questions are more likely to be received in the spirit of collaboration and open dialogue.
Exactly. And they also discuss the silent question technique, which is particularly effective in East Asian business contexts.
Right.
It involves pausing for a few moments after someone gives you an answer, allowing space for them to elaborate or provide additional information they might not have shared initially.
It's a counterintuitive technique.
Right.
Especially for those of us from Western cultures.
Yeah.
Where silence is often seen as awkward or uncomfortable.
Right.
But in many East Asian cultures, silence is a sign of respect, thoughtfulness, and a willingness to listen deeply.
And the episode emphasizes that this technique can be incredibly effective at eliciting valuable insights that would otherwise remain unspoken.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful communication happens in the absence of words.
These cultural insights are so valuable.
They are.
I'm starting to see how mastering the art of questioning is about so much more than just the words we use.
That's right.
It's about understanding our audience, adapting our approach, and using questions as a tool to build relationships, navigate complexities, and achieve our goals.
It's a fascinating blend of art and science, of strategy and empathy.
Right.
Now, are you ready to see how these techniques play out in real-world scenarios?
Absolutely. I'm eager to see how these principles can be applied in those high-stakes situations we all face in our professional lives. This episode has been a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
We've explored so many fascinating techniques and frameworks from mastering the art of asking questions, from the subtle nuances of tone of voice to the strategic brilliance of reversible question, and the cultural sensitivity of invisible question markers.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'm eager to hear what other gems they offer in the conclusion. What final insights or challenges do they leave us with?
They circle back to that story of the tech executive who struggled to be taken seriously because of her question melody. Remember how she transformed her team dynamics and her own career trajectory by mastering these techniques? Well, they reveal that her success ultimately led her to being headhunted for a CEO position.
That's amazing. It really underscores the power of these skills.
It does.
Not just for individual effectiveness, but for leadership and career advancement.
Yeah.
It's inspiring to see how mastering the art of questioning can open doors to new opportunities.
Absolutely. And they emphasize that this deep dive is just the beginning of a journey towards mastery.
Right.
They suggest a power review exercise with a twist. Imagine yourself walking into 3 distinct scenarios.
Okay.
A client meeting,
Yeah.
a team crisis,
Okay.
and a performance review.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand these techniques in theory,
Right.
but it's another to visualize how you'd apply them in those high-pressure, real-world situations.
Yeah, it's about taking those abstract concepts and grounding them in practical application.
Exactly. And as you go through this exercise, they encourage you to consider which techniques would be most effective in each scenario, how you'd adapt your approach based on the specific context, and how you'd use your questions to achieve your desired outcomes.
It's like creating a mental playbook,
Right.
a repertoire of strategies that you can draw upon
Yeah.
when faced with different challenges and opportunities.
They also highlight a key principle they call the question connection effect, which emphasizes that these techniques work best in combination, creating a synergistic effect that amplifies your impact.
So it's not about picking just one technique and sticking with it.
Right.
It's about developing a diverse toolkit and knowing which tools to use in which situations.
Precisely, and they encourage you to develop your own personal questioning style. Just like a master chef develops their signature dishes. Maybe you'll excel at those bridge questions, effortlessly connecting different perspectives and building consensus.
Right.
Or perhaps the silence leverage technique will become your secret weapon, drawing out valuable information through the power of pause.
It's about experimenting, finding what resonates with your personality and communication style. Right. And continually refining your approach through practice and experience.
It's a lifelong journey of learning and growth.
They also offer a practical tip
Yeah.
for turning these techniques into habits. What they call the 72-hour rule.
72-hour rule.
Yeah, it involves choosing just one technique
Okay.
and practicing it intensively for 72 hours
Wow.
before moving on to the next one. This focused approach helps solidify the skill and makes it feel more natural and intuitive.
It's a great way to avoid feeling overwhelmed and ensure you're fully integrating each technique into your communication style.
Right.
And finally, they leave us with a powerful challenge, the question elevation technique.
Yeah, this technique is all about transforming ordinary questions into catalysts for innovation and progress.
Okay.
It involves starting with a basic question about the current situation, elevating it to explore future possibilities, and then reframing it to inspire action.
Okay, I'm ready for the challenge.
Right.
Walk me through an example. How would you apply this technique in a real-world setting?
Imagine you're leading a project team.
Okay.
And you want to spark some creative thinking and push them beyond incremental improvements.
Right.
You can start with a basic question, like, how's our current project progressing?
That's a straightforward status update question, the kind we ask all the time.
Yeah.
It's necessary for keeping things on track, but it doesn't exactly ignite the imagination.
Right.
So how do you elevate it?
You could elevate it by asking,
Okay.
what opportunities do you see for innovation in this project? This shifts the focus from the current state to future possibilities.
Yeah.
Encouraging them to think outside the box and envision new approaches.
It's like you're inviting them to step outside their comfort zones,
Right.
to challenge assumptions, and to explore uncharted territory.
And then to inspire action.
Right.
You transform it into a call to action by asking, how could we reshape this project to set new industry standards?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It challenges them to think big,
Right.
to aim for something truly groundbreaking, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's a question that sparks ambition, ignites passion, and inspires commitment to excellence.
And the episode concludes with a powerful reminder that every great business leader started right where you are now.
That's right.
The difference is that you now have a roadmap to mastery, a set of tools and techniques that can accelerate your journey.
Yeah.
The question isn't whether you can become a master at asking questions.
Right.
It's how quickly you'll get there.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It is.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power of questions.
Me too.
And I'm excited to start putting these techniques into practice in my own work.
Yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey of mastery is ongoing.
Right.
Keep experimenting. Keep refining your approach. And most importantly, keep asking great questions.